Hello, Rickman87 and welcome to a brand new Let's Play. We are going to be diving into Grand Tactician, the Civil War. So this is a Civil War grand strategy game by Oliver Keppelmuller. It's not the newest of games. It was released, September 21? It came out 1.0, so it's maybe, a year and a half old? But it's one that I have only recently been getting into, and I thought it'd be quite an interesting thing to cover. At least we'll knock out some episodes, see how we go, see what the interest in it is like. The last time we had a Civil War outing, it was in Strategic Command, and we played as the Union. So I thought this time we will dive in as the Confederates. And for anyone who is unfamiliar with this title, it's a kind of a grand strategy version of the Civil War. It has an overworld map where you control kind of policies and economy and raising soldiers. It's kind of plausible real time, something akin to the likes of kind of a Paradox's kind of grand strategy type map. And then you jump into tactical battles when the armies actually engage with each other. And that's a Total War-esque tactical battle type thing, and we'll get to both of those in good time. They are obviously partnered up with Lionheart Filmworks here, so you do get all these fantastic reenactment battle scenes, which I do feel adds a really nice level of flavour to the game, to be perfectly honest. So just before we dive in and look at the kickoff campaign, there is one last bit of admin I want to mention. And that there is an ability, it would seem, to create characters within the game. So I've only just started playing around with this, so I've created Requin here, who is an engineer for the Confederates. I'd say to myself, good at leadership and middling at other things. But you can create a whole bunch of people for either side, and you can distribute this points system to decide, create leadership or administration or whatever it is you want to do. And as far as I'm aware, these then can appear in game as division commanders, or brigade commanders, I should say, on Ultimate Divisions. So I would say, if anyone's interested in helping me try out get this system working, then do just pop a comment down below, pick a side, and if you have a preference over what you want to command, stick that in as well, and I'll happily throw people in, and hopefully we will see some familiar names. Not 100% sure how it works or when we should expect to see these people or what the chances of them turning up, but if you're interested, give it a go. It can't hurt to have them in. Right, good. Campaigns. So there is obviously only really one main campaign, but there's plenty of starting points. I'm going to start all the way back in spring 1861, which gives you a couple of months of kind of preamble between the initial announcement of secession and the ultimate kind of start of the Civil War with the attack on Fort Sumter. However, beyond doing a bit of work on policies, it's a bit quiet, so I'll probably do a big cut there to catch people up, but we'll more about that shortly. We are going to play on the Confederate side, and we are going to put things up to mediocre, which I have had the AI give me a reasonably hard time on my Union campaign. Not kind of kicking my butt, so to say, but certainly making me work for it. So we'll leave it on that for just now. And then one interesting thing is around the policies. And we'll go on random. Can I put you on random? Yeah, you used to on random as well, that's fine. And this is how you kind of influence your playthrough and give it different variations. And depending on what you pick as your kind of pre-war policies, that's going to impact your playthrough slightly. So what are they? Well, we've got the Old Dominion, so that's about ensuring Virginia secedes. And so we are going to keep that one because I want Virginia to secede. You've got Kansas as a slave state, so that then gives you more support in Kansas and more recruitable pop. Similar slaves to the west is more support in Arizona and New Mexico, which aren't featured, translates into recruitable population. Apostles of Disunion just gives you war support in the south, but also gives a little bit of war support to the north as a kind of pushing people to extremes, I suppose. You have filibustering, which is an interesting one, and I was thinking about reading about this, and it was essentially a bunch of southern inclined people raised forces and went to establish states in Caribbean and Central America that were sympathetic to the South, with a view to potentially joining the Union as another slave state to keep that balance of slave and free states. So highlight here is Cuba and Nicaragua, both which were people had to go, and the armed forces called themselves filibusters, and it was William Walker, I think the chap's name. He invaded Nicaragua, declared himself Emperor of Nicaragua, and reigned for a very short time before he was overthrown by, I suppose, loyalist forces. And yeah, it was an invasion in Cuba. Again, went terribly badly, but the intent was there. And I'm going to pick this one because I think it's interesting to kind of think about what would happen if they had been more successful. Game terms, what's it going to do for us? It gives us some recruitable pop and increases our trade in those areas. King Cotton, so that boosts agricultural generation from your plantations and Europeans like you. Industrialization, that's what it says in the tin, so that's a boost to industrializing. And we have arms agents, so that's more native production of guns. Native allies, which is a recruitable pop from the Native Americans, and then a Southern Pacific Railroad, which builds a Southern Pacific Railroad and gives you more credit rating and more transport capacity. I'm going to go, I think, for King Cotton. I got a quick idea of that policy. So we're going for like the Southern planter's dream here. You know, successfully filibustered into Cuba and Nicaragua. We're bigging up our cotton exports. Europe's going to love us. It's going to be ace. We'll just not mention the human suffering to support it, but there we go. In terms of realism options, so a big part of this game is order delays. That's both on the tactical and on the strategic level map. It takes time for orders to get to the place. I really like that system, and I think it works really well in this way, so we'll keep that. Fog of War, I think is obviously a must. Readiness system, this is for your armies, which take time and significant amounts of time to gather, to organize themselves, gather supplies, get everyone ready to kind of actually march forward and fight battles. They can't just go combat, and yeah, I think that's quite a good balance. It does slow the game down a little bit, but then it gives you that kind of more feeling of a prolonged civil war, where you actually have to kind of plan, what campaigns am I going to be able to undertake, this spring or this summer, and does frame your objectives in that kind of that time frame. Feuds is an interesting one. So this is where your officers can follow each other, and means sometimes they just ignore their orders. I'm going to leave this one off, and that's purely because the tactical battles are, they're a little bit finicky. It's probably a good way to describe it. And sometimes they don't really do what you want them to do anyway, and so maybe it's better knowing that that's because you haven't got the game working right, rather than because we don't want to do it. So I'm going to leave feuds off. I will leave auto manage on by default, and then we're going to turn off for certain things afterwards. Okay, let's jump into the game. There will be a cutscene. I'm just going to skip through it. It's quite a nice little video, but yeah, for the sake of brevity, we'll skip past that. Okay, and now we are into the strategic level of the map, and it is. I really like all the maps in this game. I think they are truly beautiful. They have this kind of nice paper design as you zoom out, and as you zoom in, you get closer in details and swamps, and then 3D map. So we currently only have a portion of the states, those ones which seceded at the off. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? 7 of us right now. We will get more. Arkansas, or Arkansas, if you want to mispronounce it, will join us, as will Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia are all guaranteed. Kentucky will probably stay free, and Kansas and Missouri will probably stay free as well. But we shall see. That's not. I don't know how much the chances for them to change. It also depends what policies the AI ended up taking, because we gave the Union a random selection as well. Yeah, so things to talk about. Well, let's have a quick squiz through the menu buttons here. So you've got overall strategy, a handy little screen, tells you roughly how you're matched up against people. We have almost no armies, but neither do the Union, so that's fine. We're slightly outmatched in ships. We have to do a little bit about that. But yeah, this kind of tracks how we're doing, and gives us our main objectives, which right now are to take DC and to break their morale. That's fine. We've got military, so this is all your armies, of which we don't really have many, and this is where you can raise new forces. Obviously it tells you about their commander. Here we've got PGT Beauregard. It gives you his kind of stats, if you will. Apparently he's cautious, but he's light. So yeah, you get lots of detail about all your officers, and you can kind of promote them and replace them and do all that kind of good stuff. and oh, okay, it's been this triggers how you reinforce them and you've lost. So that's fine. We will eventually create troops, but I don't have to worry about that now. Again, fleets. Here's our officer corps, which I don't think I'm in it yet. No. Oh, I'd be down the bottom somewhere. I'm seeing if my generated character is where I'm trying to remember what he looks like. No, I don't think he's there. But that's fine. And then your stock of weapons, of which we have, wow, 23,000 Springfield rifle muskets. That's not terrible, actually. Good, so that's the kind of military. We'll play around that more in detail later as we raise forces. Then you've got your finances. I'm showing you how much subsidies you put in various places, your overall balances, all these bits and pieces. I do have this auto-managed, and I'm probably going to leave it auto-managed for just now, as it's an area of VM I'm still trying to learn properly. And we may switch it off as we get further into campaign, and I get some more learning in the other offline plays I'm doing. Policies. This is where you have a bit more ability to influence things with your government. So here's our pre-war ones up here, and then these are ones we can take during the campaign. Okay, let's see what they've gone for. I think these are the generic ones for the Union. Kansas, Free State, Industrialization, Union Pacific. I can't remember. Anyway, so Kansas is going to go Union. They've got railroad and they'll industrialize quickly. Fine and dandy. So things we want to think about are... I've always found these are quite important, so increasing the length of service. So when you sign people up, it's for a duration. When their service is done, they can go home. Some will re-enlist, some will go back to the manpower pool, and some will just say thanks and I'm done. So let's maybe start with the Militia Act. So if we raise some forces, they at least stick around for a year. This will take 10 days, and then we'll move on to another one. I'll probably do this one, and then maybe King Cotton, and then military. I think maybe the first 3 we get before the war kicks off. Projects. So this is, and I quite like the way this system works. So if you go to your finance settings, you see we have a bunch of subsidies over here, and that's as we put money into things, and essentially they build up to get to a point where we can then fund these projects. They'll, these circles will fill in, and different colours obviously come from different subsidies, and they get you benefits. So for example, we can buy Confederate rifles, or you can produce more, or we can get British rifles and British artillery. So there's all sorts of bits and pieces we can do over here. I'll take that off because I would like to make my own decisions here, and we'll come back to this later in the game when we can actually afford some of these. And then in terms of buildings, it's an incredible level of detail here in terms of, look, it's got all your mines, all your farms, what they're producing. You can look at your, what's the next one here, you can import, export. So there's lots and lots and lots of detail, which I will try and get into, but maybe slightly later on. Other things to talk about right now, so we've got buildings we can build. So these are the kind of federal ones that do various bits and pieces. One I want to build, probably fairly straight off the bat, is a prison camp, because I do know you end up with quite a lot of prisoners, and I think we should account for that. Where should we make our little prison safe? Somewhere internal they're not going to get to. Atlanta, does that seem like a good place for prisoners? Depending on where you build it, the cost will change. It's around about 4 million, but you can see it going up and down. So I saw 3.7, that seems good enough for me. You then have company ones again. This is around subsidies again. Once they fill up, you can then build these. And then finally, you've got railroads again. Once subsidies, you can build those. So these are things which will come later on in the game. And I'll turn the auto-manage off. It gives a little indication when we can afford some of these. Fine and dandy. Okay, maybe I'll just leave them on for just now. Good, so so what am I going to do in the first few months more? Well, not too much. I'm going to wait for the year draft to come in, and then I will probably expand the, which one's this? The Florida State Militia, from 500 men to maybe 2,500, something like that, just so they can have the capacity for taking Fort Pickens later on. I won't raise any more troops, we'll get a bunch more armies when the war kicks off. I will probably put down some ships. In fact, we can do it just now. Just because they take a while to build and are pretty useful. So let's go into our military, let's go into our fleets, and let's create a new fleet. And again, we will get more of these when the war kicks off. But let's say we want to go to New Orleans, which is a river port. Which is there. We'll click build, and then you can see it highlights what river ships we've got. So we've got a couple of 4th-rate steamers here. We've got a couple of schooners, which they're pretty rubbish. Okay, so we'll do that, and then we will also build some ships. So why don't we get some big steamers? Let's get, say, 2 big steamers. And we can get a couple of 3rd rates, why not? 4 of those. Right, so that'll give us a reasonably strong river fleet with, I don't know, a number of guns. We can try and dominate the interior rivers. And they will build using our shipyard utilization, and obviously money and all sorts of bits and pieces. The other thing I want to do, we might just do this along the coast at Mobile, is lay down a couple of larger ocean-going ships to maybe try and do a little bit of blockade busting further down the line. So we want to go to Mobile, Alabama. Is that our biggest port? No, we've got Charleston in South Carolina. Maybe we should build it there instead. Okay, we'll do that since you are a bigger port level. See, port level 3. We'll stick, sure, we can put the Virginia in her, a nice 40-gun steam frigate, who I think is still under construction. And we'd like some other ones, so we could put some other steam frigates. What's we got? Side wheels? Yeah, can't build any ironclads, unfortunately. Or we could do normal frigates. Why don't we get a couple more steam frigates? Eh? Although frigates are pretty good. In fact, what's more do you? I'm not sure if I want more steam frigates or more just real frigates. Let's go for some more real frigates, eh? Let's build. How much have we got? Wow, we've got loads of capacity. Should we go ahead and build ourselves some 4 new frigates? Why not? We'll build another steam frigate as well. The Navy's gonna have, the Union's gonna have lots of ships, so we'll see. We'll build those. It might take us a while. We'll see where we end up. But that's a hefty amount of guns in this fleet, and we'll see if we can't isolate some Union ships and sink them. Beautiful. Okay, we're almost at 20 minutes. So for the rest of this episode, what we'll do is we'll get to war. We'll probably do our first building of armies and our talk overall strategy. We probably won't get to our first conflict until the next episode, but that's just the way it goes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to advance time. You see it's pausable real time down here. And when we get to the outbreak of war, I'll bring you back and let you know where things stand. So we're not quite in the war stage yet. I just want to bring it back to bring up this because it tickled me. So you get these paper headlines pop up that kind of let you know what's going on in the world. So when you finish a policy, you'll get a headline about it. When the Union does one, you get the same. Battles and things all come up here. It's kind of their pop-up system. But the reason I like this one is because obviously this is reflecting the filibuster this pre-war policy we took, and it's talking about Confederate militias being recruited in Cuba, and it was William Walker as president of Nicaragua and all that kind of stuff. And I really like the way that's been integrated into the overall game. It pleased me. Oh, one other thing while we're looking at stuff, I have some good news. No, not my navies, my armies. The Florida State Militia is now captained by Requin. So I managed to find him. He was a captain within my officer corps. So I replaced the command of Florida State Militia, which I think seems to have bumped him up to Brigadier General, which seems a bit excessive, but there you go. But yes, so certainly that's where these made-up characters are appearing. So at least I now know how to find them and how to get them in command of stuff. Fort Sumter's probably going to stick off any day now. Where was it? Yeah, but I'd failed to notice when I was going from officer corps and I was clicking through that oh, it's interesting. Watch, 1 to 7 of 30 lieutenants and captains here. But if I went to say, well, PGT here, went to your army and I said, let's replace you, you now get up to 174. And much more captains. So maybe that's why I couldn't find them in the other menu, but I can find them here. Interesting. But yeah, probably not the greatest thing that I've instantly bumped myself up from captain to brigadier general. You do get malices for being promoted beyond your experience level. So this may all go awry for the military career of Recon, but there we go. Let's kick up to 50 plus speed. I think you can see us flying through the time. So I'm pretty sure Sumter's about to go. I can't remember the exact date. Pretty soon then. Oh, there you go. Happened now. 12th of April. Hostilities have begun. We have fired upon Fort Sumter. Confederates fired first. It's actually a really interesting little part of the Civil War. The decisions around Fort Sumter. Not so much maybe from the Confederate side, but certainly around Lincoln and his choices around Sumter. And there was those advocating within his cabinet that we should pull back and let the Confederates have it. But in doing so, that would acknowledge their right to almost that area and kind of acknowledge complicitly that they were a sovereign state. Obviously, there were some people saying, no, send in like an actual military force, but then you're then the aggressor. So in the end, he kind of told this line, was saying, well, I'm just going to send a supply convoy. So that was one which didn't have arms, and that really forced the Confederates' hand to say, either you're going to have to attack, or you're going to have to let the supply convoy through. And obviously Jefferson and Davis went, have at ye, we'll have a war, thank you very much. There you go, Fort Sumter has surrendered. We fired 3,000 rounds, but no hurt no one. Ta-da! Well, yay! It's interesting that that's got the Confederate battle flag. Oh, I'm just going to skip this one. That's got the Confederate battle flag compared to the actual flag of the Confederacy. Civil War! Not the battle flag, sorry, but the later Confederate flag versus the blue one. Okay. So there we have it. So Virginia has seceded as suspected, as has, we can zoom out a little bit, North Carolina and Tennessee and Arkansas, and Missouri and Kansas and Kentucky have all stayed free. It does say Kentucky's going to stay neutral, but it doesn't. We also have a whole bunch of new armies have popped up. So this is all well and good. And a whole bunch of new, forts, fleets have appeared as well. So we got some more ships to play around with. So what is the plan going to be? Well, we've got a couple of key things. We've got the Army of Potomac here, and we've got the Army of Shenandoah. So my first plan, now it does say they are currently starving, which I don't think is going to be the case once we advance time a little bit. You do have to worry and build lots of supply depots, which we haven't got any of them around here actually. But we'll probably build those fairly early on. But we're going to expand this. I'm going to bring new Army Shenandoah to something like 8. In fact, we can start doing that. Let's do this. We're going to bring them. We'll start with Army of Potomac. We go into Manage Army, and I'm going to organize them into divisions, and I'm going to have 3 of them, I think. Frost, Donaldson, and Walker. And so you can do it. You can either create units individually. So if I say under Cook here, and then you can pick where you're going to recruit people from. We are in Virginia, so let's people from Virginia, since that's the going to take them the quickest time to get here. I don't know, let's make these guys cavalry. Let's stick them in some Confederate grey, and you can scale the size. We can have, yeah, somewhere between 250 and 500. And we're going to recruit them, and then they will eventually make their way with the army. So it's going to take 16 days. So that's a nice, easy way of doing it. Or you can use this little tool at the bottom, and you could say, well, actually, I want 3 infantry brigades. Misses your kind of sizes here. So 3 dots for max size. 1 cavalry, 1 artillery under Frost. Please and thank you. Make that boom. And then it kind of shortens the process for you. And we'll do the same thing under Donaldson. And let's put you guys under Walker. And let's have a look at how many men that is on paper. That's 24,000 men. That's a nice size first army, I think. You're upsetting me with your kind of... I need one of you to be here, and then you to be there, and then you to be there. Okay, now everything looks perfect. One of the things we're going to want to do is play around with their weaponry. These start with mixed muskets, which is rubbish. So let's swap these out, and I would quite like the Army of the Potomac here to be my best equipped army. So you guys have so I'm going to give you guys what I'm doing my Springfield rifle muskets. Wow, I have very few actual decent guns. Okay, well, we'll start with Walker, and then we'll maybe go down. Donaldson can have a few. Get some Springfield rifle muskets. And you can get some Mississippis, and that's me kind of out. I will, however, swap out the mixed muskets for the Springfield musket, which is a slight upgrade, but the Springfield musket is it's pretty poor. And weaponry, it absolutely matters in this game. You can come yourself a cropper pretty horrendously. Right, so you can have Maynards, congratulations, and everyone else is going to get musketoons, which are again terrible. But we will look to big in that. 6-pounders, let's upgrade them to 12s if we can. This is good, and there we go. Okay, that's all my guns. So I have one reasonably well equipped army, and that's going to be it. So I'm going to go through that same kind of process. I'll probably do 2 of these for the Shenandoah. Also have a look to get up to about 28,000-ish. And then I'm going to create about 10,000 men down in Richmond. I'm probably going to just disband the Army of the Northwest. I'm going to shift the... where are they? South Carolina State Militia down here, who aren't required. I'm going to add their little amount of men to the Florida State Militia down here. And then I'm going to try and get the Missouri State Guard out of here and down to the Western Army. And again, I'll probably embiggen them to about 10,000. And Tennessee, I think we'll go up to 20,000. So what will that give us in total? Like 24, 60, about 80,000 men on the field, which is a reasonable kind of start, I think, at early 61. So I will go away and create that, and then pop back. Alright, all the armies are filled in. Now, so we can talk about army readiness, because that's one of the things we did turn on. So you see that all my armies have a little red circle beneath them, and that shows you their general state of readiness. And you also see it displayed here. They all start essentially at rock bottom, and that will slowly build up until you are, I can't remember if it's deficient or low. You cannot partake in offensive operations, and generally you need to sit stum and to get yourself sorted. It does say 8 days. I don't believe it. I think it'll take longer than that. I just don't think it has computed it yet. The other thing worth it, we have almost tapped out our current volunteer force. If I go into managing this army and try and raise another new unit, you can see that we don't have that many volunteers left. We've been pretty aggressive. I mean, it's 20,000, so it's not nothing, but not a single state has got enough to draft a new 3,000 man infantry unit. So I'll have to let that replenish. Also worth mentioning, I shifted the Great and Glorious Requin, and he is now a division commander within the Army of Potomac, and I put Beauregard in... Oh, I thought I'd done. Hang on. I was going to put Beauregard, here we've got a sign, in charge of the army, because I disbanded the militia. And why not? Because I do believe he is... Is he commander of our military forces? Yes. Yeah, he is. So he should probably have an army. Well, although some would argue he shouldn't have an army, so he can concentrate being general-in-chief. But there you go. Good. Anything else to talk about? We'd like to build some supply depots. You can't build until you're at least deficient, so we'll have to wait till those build up before we take those. General plans. Well, I think what I'd like to do is, with my biggest army here, make an early play for Washington and just try and take it and hold it early in the war. We'll see how that goes. We'll see what movements the Union take. I would also like to use my strength at Hampton here to first kind of go and clear out Fort Monroe and then come back and support. And then likewise, with a smaller force down here of the Florida State Militia, I'd like to use them to take out Fort Pickens. The Western Army, I don't have a firm plan for them yet. It's not fully strength. I'll probably have to wait for a bit while before I can build him up to a reasonable strength. I'll probably swing him over to Memphis when he's a bit more recuperated and build a supply depot there. And then with Nashville, I mean, it's just going to be a straight shot into Kansas. We'll go from Louisville and up to Cincinnati if we can. No doubt there'll be some marauding Union armies over there. So we do have a bit of an open angle in towards Charleston. We don't have an army out here, and so we may need to do some manoeuvring around if the Union decide to get particularly aggressive. On the Navy front, everyone needs time to rest and recuperate, so I'm just going to let them do that. We're already kind of building ships. We could build more. I mean, we are insanely outmatched with our naval tonnage, but I don't want to spend too much money and resources building ships, because, I mean, it's always going to be an area we struggle a little bit with. So yeah, so that's the current state of affairs. We can unpause the game and let things advance a little bit, but not a lot's going to happen in the first instance, because we're going to need to get our readiness, and we're going to build supply depots. They've pulled out, so we should get control of that supply depot. And we'll see what size of forces the Union pull together. You get these credit ratings every so often. So we are currently issuing of bonds, and our current credit rating is A-, which isn't particularly good. So we'll have to make sure we watch that. But we did just do a big splurge of recruitment, so that's to be expected as we fund and fit all these men. And I suspect the Union is doing very much the same. So they're up to, I mean, quicker than us as well, they're already up to 26,000. I do tend to find their numbers. Now it's interesting, the numbers here are very much the numbers on paper. If you click the army itself, you'll see we actually have 4,300 men in the camp. The rest are still getting ready to go. So that will take a bit of time. A recruitment crisis. Yeah. You can notice there's lots of lenses and things you can put on the map if you're interested, showing like where the front lines are. Which is quite useful for understanding who controls what. Things like supply, or what else can you do? Where is... I can't find it. You can do the telegraph lines to show where things are flowing. Fertility for when you're building cotton plantations. A whole bunch of stuff you can look at and fiddle around with. Okay, military 1 has been enacted. So what I would like to do now is probably go to the 2-year militia act, although we're not going to be raising any armies that quickly. So I think this could probably wait until probably a couple of months, at least one more policy, because everyone we've raised to date is on a 1-year contract. Arguably I could have waited a month and then raised them all on 2-year contracts, but that puts us at a bit of a disadvantage as well. We get 6 regular units of good training added to your armies. Maybe. Letters of marque is interesting, but it upsets Europe. We don't really want to do that. Free trade would be good. Why can't I do this? I need something else. So I'm either tempted to go government funding or King Cotton. I would like industrialization as well, but... Nah, let's do this. We've said we're going to go cotton, let's go cotton. Good. Okay, we are... Okay, we got control of Harper's Ferry supply depot. This is good. So that'll help keep everyone in supply. I would like another depot near Alexandria and another depot down Richmond, just so we always have supply available to us. Because it is very frustrating when your armies run out of supply. And that's probably going to be the state of affairs for the first month or so. We're going to be sitting here, gathering our forces, readying supply, and then we'll go for a clash. And if we do clash, we need to make sure that the army of Shenandoah gets here soon enough so we reinforce and we don't face 2 upon 1. Okay, some of our navies are... in a reasonable state. Yeah, and we could... maybe try a John. What have you got? Probably not very many ships. And I'm loath just to get my fleets annihilated without doing much about it. I should have at least one river fleet here, though. Okay, so this is the one that's been automatically generated, and this is the one which we are building. Are you all done? You are all done. Sweet. Okay, well, let's get you up the river and start taking control of the waterways. So why don't we sail you up to Cairo? And we'll grab our other fleet. Okay, that's fine. New Orleans Squadron. And where should we push them to? We could get defensive or we could get aggressive. let's go further upriver, out towards Louisville. See what the Union have. That's my poorer river fleet though, so I need to be not too aggressive with them. Okay, good. Yeah, so what we're going to do now then, we'll probably put a cut in and come back. I'll probably advance a little bit of time before next episode, maybe a month or so, let everyone rest and recuperate, and come back when we're ready for our first clash. Excellent. So I hope you are enjoying this. I hope you're excited by the prospect and that you rejoin us at least for the next one, when you can see us get into some trouble. As ever, if you do want to be an officer, drop a comment with whatever name you would like to use and I'll add you in, and what side you want to be on. And yes, this is the first episode of a new series, so I don't like to do these call to actions, but yeah, an old thumbs up on the like button would be appreciated, as it, you know, helps the algorithm and gets us exposed to more people, which is useful because otherwise no one sees what I do. Okay, great. Thanks for your time, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheerio!